Avi, it's been a difficult few days for the Israel Defense Forces and for Israel generally. What is the latest in terms of an investigation into the deaths of hostages who appeared to have escaped Hamas's clutches, came out with white flags, but were tragically killed by soldiers?
It's an ongoing investigation. I can tell you that what's happening on the ground is very, very difficult from a psychological perspective. There's a lot of psychological warfare being waged by Hamas against our soldiers. We've heard reports of them setting up scenarios by which the soldiers would think that there's hostages in a specific area to then ambush them. So we've heard reports of them playing Israeli toddlers saying save me," from within buildings that are booby trapped. We saw video evidence of like a circle of babies' toys, children's toys that were all booby trapped. And again, in the middle, there was some sort of a device that was playing Israeli music and making noises as if there were young children there. Because we know obviously that they've taken many hostages, and we still have that 9-month-old baby who's now 11 months in their custody. The psychological warfare is rife. We know that our people, those three innocent men, had escaped from Hamas's clutches, were walking in the street. Our soldiers were not informed that they weren't looking for that type of scenario. They figured that hostages would be deep underground, shackled somewhere, etc. So they weren't anticipating that scenario. And it appears that the worst outcome happened. But again, it's an ongoing investigation. And we hope that all of the measures have been taken so that it never happens again.
And what about the rules of engagement? Obviously, the rest of the world sees an incident like this. Their inevitable conclusion is often, well, if that's how Israel reacts in a certain situation where there is tension and confusion on the ground, how can they be confident in what Israel is saying about its plans to minimize civilian casualties?
So Israel's operating in a way that no other army in the world operates on the highest of standards. Now, mistakes happen, and this was a heart-wrenching example of that. But I can tell you that we're talking about an area that is a war zone. That specific area is a war zone. We're talking about an area where, from the beginning of the war, Israel took unprecedented steps to say, move out of the area if you're a civilian. And something like 95% of the population moved to the south. So that's why it was, I would assume, that the army was taken by surprise and assumed that this was some kind of a ruse or whatever. They were not expecting to see hostages walking in the street. Now, when we go into Hamas hotbeds, as you know, we've put out, for the south, we've put out a map, very, very detailed map. And we're literally saying, we're coming to your neighborhood next. Take cover, get out of the way. We don't want you to get caught up in the line of fire. What army would do that in the world? I'm not familiar in the history of modern warfare of any army that would lose the element of surprise. I mean, surprise is how armies win wars. So we're taking unprecedented measures, and we will continue to do so. This was an outlier, and we pray that no civilians lose, that there's no loss of civilian life on both sides. And I'll remind you, we didn't start this war, we didn't want this war, but we now have to win this war, and we'll do it with minimum civilian casualties on both sides.
And what is the latest on the killings of two women in a church in Gaza? What do you know to be the truth of that incident and who was responsible?
It's under investigation, and that's a problem with us, with the Israelis in general, is that we can't just come out with information if we haven't fully investigated it. Hamas is happy to lie through their teeth, and sadly, many people around the world are happy to copy and paste those Hamas lies. We have to thoroughly investigate what happened. Any civilian casualty is a calamity, but we don't know the full picture yet. It's still being looked into. What I can tell you, I mean, I've heard the reports, but again, these are people that were in an area where there is an ongoing war. The way it's being framed is as if Israel purposely shot these civilian women in a church. That's absurd. Israel doesn't target churches. Israel doesn't target civilians. But I know who does. Hamas. Hamas has a history of subjugating the Christian population in Gaza. We know their ideology. We know how they feel about Christians. We know how Christians live freely in Israel. So that narrative that is being pushed just before Christmas is an absurd narrative. Israel do its utmost to rid Gaza of Hamas and free the people of Gaza from Hamas. That is our objective, and that's what we will stick to.
The UN is looking at another vote on a ceasefire. What will be the impact of anything that happens in the United Nations in terms of Israel's policy in Gaza?
So we saw the veto the other day from the Americans, which we truly appreciate. And that is in line of the reality on the ground, which is that a ceasefire at this point would do nothing but empower Hamas, keep Hamas in control of the Gaza Strip. And we know who Hamas are. We saw the brutal terror attack on October 7th, beheading babies, raping as a weapon. They are threatening to do that again and again and again. Their objective is the destruction of the state of Israel. Their objective is the genocide of Jews worldwide. We can't allow that to happen. So I understand, if people are watching the TV abroad and seeing what's going on in Gaza and feeling pain for the civilians. I feel that pain too. We didn't start this war and we didn't win this war, but we need to ensure that there's not another round of violence and another round of violence and another round of violence. And we can't enable this terrorist state, this mini terrorist state, to continue as is on our southern border. So from the Israeli perspective, we will continue. This war will end when Hamas ends. This war will end when all of our hostages are back home with their families. And calls for a ceasefire are sadly misplaced because that would continue Hamas's rule over Gaza, and nobody wants that in the free world.
The IDF have implied that they've taken out a Hamas money launderer today. How close do you think Israel's defense forces are to reaching the very top people in this terror organization, including Sinwar?
Loose lips sink ships is what my grandma always told me. So I can't go into greater detail of how close we are to Sinwar. I can tell you that the reports that you've seen, that we've surrounded his house, that we've been to his holiday home. We know that billions of dollars have flooded the Gaza Strip in recent years, and that's why we're dealing with what we're dealing with. Hundreds of miles of tunnels, a terror entity embedded deeply under hospitals, mosques, schools. We need to put an end to this, and I'm happy to hear that we've turned off one of the money laundering taps, if you will. And we will continue. As my Prime Minister has said, any of the perpetrators of the October 7th massacre are dead men walking.
And what about Israel's progress in Gaza generally? How would you assess the performance of your forces and whether they're any closer to getting the aims of the mission completed?
I'll stress that I'm not an IDF spokesman and I can't speak directly to ongoing operational activity, but I can see that we've taken significant action in the north of Gaza, that we have destroyed hundreds of tunnel shafts and will continue to do that, that we have taken out over 7,000 terrorists. And slowly, day by day, we are bringing peace and normality to the people of southern Israel, and in fact, all of Israel. As you know, just before the interview, I had to run to the bomb shelter in Tel Aviv. We can't go on in this way, so we will continue until the end of Hamas.
After Hamas, is there any further meat on the bones as to what is going to happen next? There was talk some weeks ago of a temporary Israel-led force in terms of security for the enclave. But what is the overall plan at this moment? What more can you tell us?
We've been clear about a few points, which is the day after Hamas, Gaza will need to be demilitarized, Gaza will need to be de-radicalized, and Gaza will need to be rebuilt in a new vein, a vein that doesn't see children raised to hate Jews, doesn't see children raised to kill Jews, doesn't see children raised being told that one day they will return to Jaffa, to Tel Aviv, to Haifa, that they will destroy the state of Israel. That's not going to be the Gaza that we will see in the future. My prime minister made it very clear the other day that it won't be Hamastan, as he predicted in 2005, and it also won't be Fatahstan. It won't be run by the Palestinian Authority. We need to look at a new civilian leadership in Gaza that loves life more than they love death, and we will put our best minds on that the day after Hamas. We're still identifying some of those individuals that were killed on October 7th. As you know, we saw the worst terror attack in world history since 9/11. We saw the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. And only last week, archaeologists, and yes, you heard that right, archaeologists identified 2 more individuals that were killed on October 7th. So they've reduced Jews to ash in a way that we haven't seen since Auschwitz. And this is an ongoing operation. The day after Hamas will be a brighter day for Israel. It'll be a brighter day for Gaza. And it'll be a brighter day for the world. The intricacies of that will be worked out later on.
How concerned are you about other fronts escalating? There appeared to be, over the last few days, an increased threat from Lebanon and Hezbollah. What's your verdict on that tension and action right at this moment?
So it's ongoing. Unfortunately, we've lost a number of civilians to attacks on the northern border. I mean, our message to state actors and non-state actors seeking to open up other fronts is the message of the President of the United States. Don't. And I can't really go further than that. What I can tell you, as far as the Houthis are concerned, another Iranian proxy, is that the world is waking up to the threat, is understanding the threat. We saw that the Americans are now bringing together a group of nations to go after that threat. And my prime minister has said for 30 years that Iran stands at the head of this entire operation. They have proxies all over, and they appear to be pulling the strings on their proxies, be they Hezbollah, be they Hamas, or the Houthis. This is a world problem. This isn't just an Israel problem.
How concerned are you about what is happening in the Red Sea at the moment? There's already companies trying to look at other trade routes.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a concern, and I welcome the moves of the American administration to take action against that with allies. It's a real concern that ships don't feel safe because of these pirates, terrorist pirates, whose strings, like I said, are being pulled from Tehran.
So if the American administration doesn't get serious with Iran, either by attacking it militarily or with sanctions, what will Israel do?
I would leave that to those above me. I mean, the prime minister has made his position on Iran very, very clear. We're not talking about Iran at this stage directly, but we're talking about their proxies who have done serious damage. And our current objective is to destroy Hamas and to ensure the freedom of all of the hostages left in Gaza.